Is it on? Jeez. Homebrew Wednesday for May 29th, 2013. And, well, I have a few topics, but first we're just going to drink. Whoops, I spilt the goddamn thing. Here's. Boy, can't take me anywhere. I'm not really that drunk. How you doing? Jeez, I'm a terrible actor. I don't know if you fell for that or not, but anyways, can you see? I finally hung up my plaque out back there. Drilling into concrete is a real pain in the ass. And, you know, I don't even know if I'm supposed to do that here, but anyways, there we have it. So, looks great. Again, I'm not a very good actor, so I don't know if you fell for that or not, but cheers. And I'm drinking this has become one of my favorite beers to make from a kit. And it's a Thomas Cooper's Selection IPA. Now, keep in mind, I don't have a lot of selection when it comes to beer kits locally. And having them shipped from the US is expensive. And I really am not interested in paying $25 for shipping to get a beer kit up here. So I brew Cooper's, and I love the flavors of their kits. I really do approve of their products. I'm not just saying that. Because look at that. This is a Thomas Cooper's Selection Pilsner. Okay? And I mean, it's a little hazy. You know, we won't even go there. It doesn't matter how hazy or clear it is. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, fresh tasting, refreshing beer. I mean, it just... so if you're, you know, the weather's getting nice up here in the northern... the northern continent of America, which is where I live, and Canada, of course, but that's still part of America. And there ought to be a hell of a discussion down in the comment section about what I just said there, but we'll straighten it out. And anyways, the weather's getting nice, and I'm getting in the mood for some nice, cold, fresh, refreshing, sort of, you know, as we call it, lawnmower beers. And this is the one that I'm going to go to for just banging off, you know, quick beer kits. Give it a try. Don't take my word for it. Brew it at as low a temperature as you can. Follow the instructions for the temperatures. Let it go for a couple weeks. Do it right. Bottle it up or keg it. And you tell me if this isn't a nice, refreshing beer. Let's get on. I've got a few topics. First of all, I'm going to talk about yeast, and I'm going to talk about hops. And I'm going to talk briefly about the brew I've got going on right now. That's not my stomach. That's it over there. First of all, I've got a Cooper's IPA over there. Now, I know I say Cooper's a lot. For lack of a better excuse, I don't have access to a lot of beer kits where I live. And having them shipped up from the United States is difficult. Well, it's not difficult, it's expensive. I don't want to pay $25 or $30 or more to have a beer kit shipped up to me. I'm brewing to save money, not to spend money, right? So, you know, I have access to Brew Canada, Cooper's, and Black Rock. So I brew Cooper's, you know, and I have tried the other ones, and you know what, I really do like the Cooper's product. You know that, and you know, of course, I do my all grain and my, you know, that one there is you know, like a hop edition Cooper's IPA with extra hops, and I did a 20-minute boil just in hot water. Well, of course, it's hot water. It's boiling. 20-minute hop addition, cascade, and then at 5 minutes, again, another hop addition. Hit it with another ounce or so of cascade at 5 minutes. And so it's going to be pretty hoppy. Now, the hop thing is that A couple weeks ago, or a month or so ago, I brewed one of these, the same thing, with extra hops, but I used, a bag, Muslim bag, or a mesh, thing to put the hops in. And, I basically sat it inside the pot that I was using to boil it in, put the hops in, sat it in there, made sure it didn't fall all the way in, and then when it came to add more hops, I just opened it and dumped more in, sort of did that, and just let it boil. You pull it out, you've got this big mass of hop. That doesn't look good, does it? But anyway, so this time I decided not to use one of these. I just threw the hops right in to the boil. So I got about a half a gallon of water, brought it to a boil, threw in just about an ounce of Cascade hops, let it boil for 15 minutes, and then threw in another 3/4 of an ounce, is what I had, and let that go for 5 minutes. So 20 minutes total, make it a hop tea. And I just added that to the Cooper's IPA beer kit. And I'm telling you right now, comparing the two methods, this versus dumping it straight in, I can smell coming out of the airlock, even from here. I can smell hops. The last one I did with the bag, I couldn't even taste the hops in the beer. And it's the same hops. It's the same, like I bought it at the same time from the same, they dumped it into the, from the same purchase. So I don't know about you guys, but I've made up my mind. I'm not putting my hops in these bags anymore. I know you get more trub at the bottom, more stuff at the bottom of your fermenter, but I don't think you're getting this is my own opinion, I could be wrong. You guys can discuss this down below. I'd love it if you would. I don't think you're getting as much utilization when it's in a bag all squished together. Maybe if you do those hop spiders that people have, where it's a great big hop bag, and it goes in and then they pull it out at the end. It sits on the pot. That's probably fine, but these little bags for hops, you do your own experiments with that, and you try and see what you come up with as far as doing it this way versus just dumping. We're talking the pellets, by the way, the dry pellets. Leaf hops, oh, wow, that's a different story. I don't know. I haven't experimented with that yet as far as this versus dumping them straight in. So I don't know that, but I'm just telling you my experience with a hop bag, which just fell in water. Okay, well, I'll leave it. That's fine. There's a pot of water down there. Versus not using a bag, I'm finding that, and I'll just check it. Oh, it just has more hop aroma coming out of the airlock. So we'll taste that beer in a couple weeks when it's ready, and we'll see. Because I keg my beers, I don't bottle. So we'll see what. Let me just pick this up. It's bugging me. All right. So that's the hop thing. Bag versus no bag. What do you guys think? That's my opinion on it. No, it's no bag for me. Unless you're adding tons and tons of hops, then you might want to capture and maybe the bittering hops in a bag, but not the flavor and aroma hops. Maybe they should be free to swim around and add lots of flavor. Maybe that's a thing. I mean, aren't we all just still trying to figure this stuff out, really? I mean, if you've had an experience with that, let us know down in the comments. The next thing, yeast. Now, as you, I'm sure, know, there's dry yeast and there's liquid yeast. Okay? Now, I usually use dry yeast because liquid yeast is very expensive. For me, I think that something like this, if I can even get it, is like $12. The liquid yeast is expensive. The dry yeast is very, very cheap, and it lasts longer. Sticks around longer. You don't have to worry about using it right away and all that kind of thing. So, I use dry yeast most often. I use US04, US05, and Cooper's. Those are really the only yeasts I can get my hands on locally here where I live without ordering it from somewhere. And again, there's shipping and all that. So I often use dry yeast. And I've been fighting with myself for years. When I sprinkle the yeast, you can rehydrate the dry yeast, of course, which is, putting it in some warm water and, letting it sort of get itself hydrated for 20 minutes or so, and then you dump that in. And you got to kind of know what you're doing. Just steps you have to take to sanitize things, and there's a minimal risk that you could mess it up, and but if you know what you're doing, certainly that's recommended. But I usually just, when I'm doing one of these coopers, I just sprinkle it right on top, just like they say. And then I've been fighting with, do I stir it in or do I leave it on top? For years, I've been internally debating this thing, which should you stir it in or should you just leave it? Some people just leave it on top, some people stir it in. I used to do the sort of flip-flop thing where I would just get it sort of moist on top, but I wouldn't stir. Well, I thought of something the other day, and I want you guys to let me know what you think. Putting the yeast, okay, usually you've got your wort, right? And it's there's usually a lot of foam on top. Generally, I think most people experience the fact that you've poured it in there, you've got it all going, and there's lots of foam on top, and then you sprinkle your dry yeast on top of that, if that's what you do, right? And then it's like, okay, the question is, do I stir it in or I don't stir it in? Maybe some of you don't stir it in, maybe some of you do. Well, here's my theory. When you sprinkle the yeast on top, as soon as you start sprinkling it on, you can hear the fizzing that goes on as it hits that foam that's sitting on top of your wort. And what that is it's the yeast is sucking in moisture. So it's breaking all the bubbles in the foam, right? So it's sucking in moisture, and of course there's sugar in that foam because it's part of the wort. So it's also starting to eat sugar, starting to do its thing, it's starting to multiply, it's starting to, get busy. And there's oxygen in that cavity above the wort in your fermenter. So the yeast is utilizing that as well as the oxygen in the beer because it's still sitting on top and it still has, sort of available to it the oxygen from the atmosphere inside the fermenter. All right, so that's good for it. And as it starts to hydrate itself with the foam and get used to the temperature of the wort, it's sort of like stepping into a pool slowly, like instead of stirring it in and making it, getting it stressed out. It's also starting to do a little bit of sugar consumption and creating a small amount of carbon dioxide on top of the wort, because carbon dioxide comes out, but it's heavy. It stays on top of the wort. It doesn't float up like helium or even oxygen. It tends to create like a blanket on top of your wort. So having the yeast spread around the top and leaving it there, letting it eat that foam and get hydrated gently and used to the temperatures of the wort, and creating some carbon dioxide along the way initially, I think protects your beer. It protects your wort. More so than if you stir it in. Now you've got nothing on top of your beer. Most of the yeast sinks down to the bottom of the fermenter if you haven't noticed. And the top of your beer is vulnerable to any bacteria that's floating around inside the top of the fermenter and in the airspace. Bottom line is, I think it's safer for your beer and healthier for your beer and your yeast to not stir it in, as far as dry yeast goes. And that's my opinion, and you guys let me know what you think. So this particular batch, I didn't stir it in. I left it on top, and I hate doing that because it's like, well, it's not in there yet. It's still sitting on top. I'm a little OCD about that. But this time I put the lid on, I forced myself to walk away, and within 8 hours, that airlock was going like mad. Just like, well, not quite that much like mad, but pretty good. Very low latency, and the protection was there. If I'd stirred that yeast in, I would have went 8 hours with no protection on top of the wort. So that's a theory of mine. Let me know what you think about that. Now, when it comes to liquid yeast, of course, or rehydrating dry yeast, what you're normally doing is you're trying to get the temperature of the yeast solution close to the temperature of the wort, so that when you add the yeast, it's like adding fish to water. You don't want to have fish in really warm water and then add them to cold water, they're going to die, right? So it's the same thing. Any aquarium expert will tell you that. So with liquid yeast, it's a little different. You want it to be the same temperature as the wort, so when you add it, whether it's a yeast starter or just a rehydration of dry yeast or whatever, or whatever, you want it to be the same temperature. And I think that's the stress point there, is the change in temperature when you add the yeast. And of course, that's just going down inside the beer and floating, doing its thing. But as far as dry yeast goes, I personally think that you should not stir it in. It took me a lot of years to come to that conclusion, but I think that you shouldn't not stir that yeast in. Now, in the wine kits, you can't see, down here I've got a carboy full of red wine that I'm brewing. In those kits, the instructions specifically say, do not stir in the yeast once you add it to the must. The wine wort is called must. It's not called wort. When you add it to the must, they say do not stir. And this is what I think, that's to protect the must from bacteria. The yeast is there. It's kind of setting up house. Nothing else can really take over, and it's creating a carbon dioxide layer on top that's protecting your product. What do you guys think? That's the best I can do. I'm not going to go on about that any further. I think it's something that you should experiment with, and I don't think you should stir your yeast into your dry yeast into your wort. That's my bottom line. It's my opinion. I would love to hear yours. Okay, please politely post it down in the comments. All right, let's all raise our glass. If you're having a beer, watching this, having yourself a home brew, cheers. Raise your glass. 17. If you don't know better, 17 means cheers. It's a long story. I didn't make it up, but it has caught on, and it has to do with NASCAR. So that's it. It means cheers. Okay. Now, the final thing I would like to do is ask you guys a question, and I'll try and keep this as short as I can. Let me grab the camera here. And we have this. Oh, there's the wine there. Now here we have the wash that I did. Now it's not going to clear totally. I've done something wrong, but it's fine. It doesn't matter. You saw last week where I had mixed with those little bottles of flavoring. So I've got all this stuff. Now I'm going to probably bottle this and add flavor to it, to each bottle, so I can drink it. You can drink it like this, but it's not, it's not the best. And well, there's the airlock there going. I can go out and buy the flavor things for this wash, and it's usually one flavor pack, flavor bottle. Those little bottles, it's one per 1 liter bottle approximately. Okay, but they're $5. They're $5 each. Those little flavor packet, bottles of flavor stuff. So, I can go and buy a bunch, but I think I've got about 10 liters of wash in there. That's going to be 10 bottles of that stuff. It's going to be $50 plus tax, and I don't really want to go and spend all that money on this. So, if you guys know of any other ways to flavor this, and I'm talking, concentrated stuff. I don't want to dilute it in juice or pop or anything like that. Somebody mentioned cake flavoring. I don't even think I've ever seen that anywhere. I don't even know where you'd get that. Maybe I just haven't looked for it. Maybe it's there staring me in the face. I don't know. But I would love to know if you have any ideas how we can come up with these little bottles of concentrated extract or flavoring for really, really cheap, and add those to the bottles of the wash. I would love to hear that if you have any ideas about that. Again, good for a discussion down in the comments down below. Okay, and I will try your ideas if I can find the stuff that you come up with. All right, so listen, I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching. I don't want this to be too long. Cheers. Dry throat. This is a very, very refreshing beer. I'll do a video on making one of these. What the heck? It's a kitten. Well, it's not a kitten kilo, but it's a kit. And just how I did this one. And I great beer. Okay? Just a very basic, if you like, your regular store-bought beer that you buy every day or every week, or whatever it is, and you want to make your own, this looks to me a lot better than that store-bought beer. You pour one of those into a glass, it don't look like this. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys. Please rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Yes, I'm reverting to that rate, comment, subscribe thing. I hear that it does help when you guys do that for me. You rate the video if you thumbs up if you like it, and share the video on Twitter and Facebook or wherever. Just share it. Spread it around. That's all we need. Do that to all my videos. Spread them around. That's what we need, is more people seeing this stuff. And if you like it, that's a good thing. If you don't, well, I'm sorry. There's not much really I can do about that. I'm getting half in the bag from this bloody beer. Well, it doesn't help much that I've got. I'm double fisted. I'll put this one down, and we'll let you guys get back to whatever it was you were doing before I interrupted your life. Cheers, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Be safe.